This podcast is brought to you by absolutely no one. The Bald and the Beautiful podcast with Dave Vella. Who the hell is Dave Vella?
Hey, thanks for joining me for this episode of The Bald and the Beautiful. I'm Dave Vella, and this conversation is with a lady who has seen a lot, done a lot, and had a lot happen to her. I've known her for nearly 30 years, and she's definitely lived a wild roller coaster of a life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. She chats to me candidly about her sexual abuse at the hands of her older brother, her days as a Penthouse Pet centrefold, and the rock stars she dated as a result, and even the time she spent 2 weeks in a crowded Greek jail. She acknowledges that her life has been a series of one in a million type of events, both good and bad, and we chat about some of them, but these will only give you a glimpse into the extraordinary situation she has found herself in. She's a loving mum to a 21-year-old son, and she is raised by herself, and she's a very spiritual lady. She spent a lot of time delving into self-awareness. She now lives a life somewhat quieter than that of her youth, however, but the sex and drugs and rock and roll theme continues as she deals with her staff and her clients as the madam of a brothel. My guest today is the beautiful Susie G. I realised today that we first met in 1991.
Okay.
That's nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's amazing.
1991. Do you remember how we met?
I'm just trying to think. It was to do with the pet show with Terry, and you were coming on to be our roadie.
Yeah. Well, I was dating one of the girls in your show, Dominique.
You had already started seeing Dommy outside, and that's right. And then you started to come to shows. That's right. And I remember when we first met, it was more of me thinking you were sort of like young and upcoming, so I had to pull you in your place a little bit.
Really?
I remember it was more like, you were like needing to carry our bags or something and be our apprentice, and that was the way Dominique, Dom, dominating the whole thing. She was just like, he's not allowed to think he's the rock star or anything while he's doing this.
So what it was is I came on tour with these girls as a show called, I think it was called the Penthouse Pet Party.
That's right.
So it was basically just a bunch of the Penthouse Pets.
Yes.
Penthouse being the men magazine.
Yep.
It was in very similar way. It was like a Manpower show.
Well, that's where Manpower came from, because Terry actually dated Billy Cross when we were starting the pet show.
Oh, there you go.
And he, sort of knew that it was a good idea, but being a male-dominated sort of world, I guess, in as far as like you can go far, the pet show, there was already too many women in Vegas, and so Manpower went over. Billy had that idea to open all that up, but you can't take rice to the Chinese, so Australian centrefolds don't make that much difference in the US, whereas the Manpower thing, I think
in the US, the idea of stripping was very much centred around pole dancing, around the clubs, around the tipping.
Yep.
In Australia, it wasn't like that.
No.
And they weren't used to the show as such because they didn't want the show. The men wanted to have women up close and personal, in their face, sliding up on a pole.
Yes.
And the reason Manpower worked was because women enjoyed sitting back a little bit, being more of that voyeur and watching it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the reason for the differences. But I remember when I joined you guys, I came on as the road crew, so I was basically setting up lights and gaffing down.
And I was married at the time.
That's
and
right.
You and
your husband was on our road
Hayden,
crew.
And yourself. And then our manager was Evan, and you three were like the three musketeers that would be in the truck full of equipment while all of us would be in the Tarago heading out to Blackwater, Queensland or something.
Okay, the tour that we did was the North Queensland tour, and I remember There's a few things that stick in my mind about that tour. Actually, there's three things that stick in my mind about that time. A, it was all very new for me anyway, because I was only 21, 22.
That's right.
Dating this hot little Penthouse Pet. I don't even know how that came about. It just happened. And then I'm on the road with these 5 or 6 awesome, gorgeous Penthouse Pets. And I'm like, holy shit, I've died and gone to heaven.
Well, I've got to tell you kept you cool, because I didn't notice that back then.
And then, so the things that stick out in my mind were when we went to a place called Bowen, which is North Queensland.
Yes.
We went to this place and we played this dodgy little, I don't even know what it was.
It was an RSL club or something, like a little bowling club or something.
No, I don't think it was, because there was no security there. It was like a hall.
Oh, the community centre.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
that's right.
There was no security. The only men that were in the place were me, Evan and Hayden.
Right.
There was no one. I think even the bar staff might have been women.
Yep.
And the stage was literally only about half a foot off the ground. It wasn't much. And I remember it wasn't a massive venue. I think it might have held 220, 230 people.
Right, and which was typical of the small towns. And it was like we were taking the glamour, to the small towns. It was a bit Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
It was a bit.
We were real women, not trannies.
And, But the men, oh my goodness, like it was like these were farm blokes. These were like, this is the first time
Cow cockies from out west, yes.
This is the first time I heard expressions like the guys were screaming out, "Show us your gutted rabbit."
Exactly. That's definitely
I was like,
the worst thing. And even at the Canberra Nationals years later, there was a 16-year-old boy holding that up on a poster to me when we
gutted rabbit. The other one was, "Show us your axe wound." And the last one was, "Show us where the pig fucked you."
Oh my God. That would have been Cowra, down at where they had the abattoirs.
Maybe, but it was definitely Bowen, because I remember it imprinted on my brain how Neanderthal men can be.
Yes.
And it was actually quite a scary situation because the more they drank, obviously, the rowdier they got.
Yes.
And I came to this realisation that I was this 21-year-old on this adventure for the first time with 2 other blokes and these women and 220, 230 guys drinking heavily in the crowd. And I'm thinking, man, they've only got to decide to get a bit aggro.
And it would all go sideways. Very quick. Yeah, no, and that did happen. We've had that happen probably twice in the 6 or 7 years we were on the road. And one of those was Cowra, and they have the abattoirs down there. So it was like guys are chopping up cows all day. And then they came to our show and they were drinking not glasses of, jugs of Jack and Coke or bourbon and Coke or whatever. They were getting served jugs. And I remember that was when I did my Kaysan, cold chisel-y. I was like a soldier girl, and I'd come out in the soldier uniform. And I remember I used to try and comic up the first part of it, and I used to chew gum and have like glasses on and in this sort of almost not a ghillie suit but camouflage gear, I guess, which could rip off pretty quickly. And I remember I used to walk along like just doing a smart swagger with the chewing gum chewing away really big in my mouth.
Didn't you give it to a guy?
I used to press it on their forehead. I'd walk into the crowd and I'd walk along and I'd think which one of the guys in this group of friends is the one they all pick on, because it's pretty noticeable usually. And I'd put the chewing gum right in the middle of his forehead as I, just sort of like and walk past as part of the show. Anyway, in Carol, the guy was sort of looking like he was half asleep. So I went up and put the chewing gum on his mouth, and he was punchy, drunk, sleep, and he got up and he tried to king hit me in the middle of my solo. And then the crowd just was getting rowdier and rowdier. By the time Terry came on, she used to do the last solo of the show. And
Terry Bowie was I think she was
Pet of the Year.
1989?
1988 she was Pet of the Year.
And she came out as a big Indian feather.
Yep. And we all changed our solos around, but in that particular show she was like that. But that's when they'd really started saying some of the loose stuff, "Show us your cunt" and things like this, screaming that out the top of their lungs. And then because it's a topless show, when Terry finished her solo, she had said to us before she went on, "The crowd's really rowdy out there. I don't know how long my solo will go for. Let's pack the van and let's get ready to go. You know, we were sort of ahead of it.
Ready for the backdoor
because we
boogie.
could feel, you know, like I'm not cut off or anything. I could feel this intense aggro building up, and pretty similar to where you're talking about at Bowen. There were only a few guys there was none at Bowen, but there was a few guys, but they were like 70 from the RSL club, and they were our bouncers, and we kind of knew that they weren't going to be able to control this massive crowd of abattoir workers.
Yeah.
And so, bang. As soon as Terry didn't take her pants off at the end and went to walk off stage, 300 guys rushed the stage, and they actually knocked the wall of the dressing room down. We just got out the back door in time before the whole inside wall of the dressing room came crashing down.
Unreal.
We made it to the bus, and then we had this convoy. We were staying in a motel just on the outskirts of town, and we had this convoy of people. It was like, I don't know what they were going to do to us when they caught us, but there were carloads of angry men chasing our bus. And there was this one roundabout in the whole of Cowra, I think. And we're like going around and around, and there was like a traffic jam in the roundabout to try to get back to the motel. And we went to turn into the motel, and Evan went, they'll just wreck the motel. And we went, keep driving. And so we're driving for hours out of this town until the headlights behind us finally stopped.
Man.
And then it was probably an hour later that we sort of crippled ourselves back to the motel and got out of there before daybreak, sort of thing. It was just, it was one of the scariest times I ever had on the road. But you got to look back and laugh on it because it was ridiculous. What were they going to do to us when they caught us?
But it's a real lethal mix, isn't it? You've got beautiful women getting pretty much
Half naked,
you know.
Yep.
You've got a whole bunch of men
That
living in a
probably
country town that haven't seen, especially women like that, and in close proximity with that access, and drinking copious amounts of alcohol. It's just
a recipe for disaster. That's why I could never really work out why Evan did the community centres and not the RSL or whatever in town. And you know, you find things out in hindsight that he was just a embezzling bastard, basically. And so we got to stay in really kind of shit accommodation and play shit venues because he was pocketing most of the money.
Make more money.
Yeah.
Fantastic promoters.
Yeah. Don't we love them?
How long were you doing... Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you, how did you get into becoming a
Penthouse Pet?
A Penthouse Pet. Did the Penthouse Pet come before the dancing, or the dancing come before the Penthouse Pet?
Well, typical Aussie girl, physical culture. I started that when I was a little girl. So fizzy and dancing was sort of part of my life. But I hadn't done it for a few years. And then modelling basically was it. When I was mid-teens, friends of mine took a couple of photos, and I ended up having a boyfriend whose mum was a casting agent in Sydney, and she said to me, you should go to June Riley's and try and get on the books there for commercials and things like that. So I went to Riley's and got on their books, and I don't know, a few commercials back in the day, Polaroid sunglasses, Stimorol, chewing gum, all that sort of stuff. And so I did a few commercials like that back in the day, which was good money at the time or whatever, gave me a little bit of ego. But I was doing my psych nurse training at the same time. So I was sort of doing that part-time.
Get you through the nursing.
Yeah, and also, you know, nursing's one of the lowest paid jobs in the world. So I wasn't going to be buying my house just being a nurse. So this modelling was kind of like the other way I could get around the world. Avid traveller at heart. So, you know, I'm not from a wealthy family, hard-working, middle-class Aussie family with its own problems. The nuclear family, of course, has all its problems. And just in amongst that, you know, I dealt with quite a lot of serious stuff when I was little, really serious sexual abuse from a brother that was 11 years older than me.
How old were you when that happened?
2 to 7 or 8 years of age. Yeah, pretty heavy. And
do you remember much of that?
bottom line is I have a lot of memory coming back since I gave birth to my son. More so. I'd really buried it. I'd really put my brother on a pedestal.
I've heard about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, put my brother on a pedestal for a really long time. I mean, he nearly choked me to death when I was about 7, nearly 8 years of age, because I went, at school they first taught us about stranger danger or sexual abuse or whatever. I actually thought that every girl in Australia had a relationship with her older brother or whatever in some weird way in my head.
Well, it's
it
normal,
had been
wasn't it?
happening to me since I was 2,
and
weekly, it ended up being, some as sick as this sounds, it even ended up being like on the lounge room floor in front of the telly at midday on a Saturday while the WWF wrestling was on, and he'd be pretending to wrestle me on the lounge room floor, and my mother would be in the kitchen and my father would be mowing the lawn or something, like, as sick as that sounds. My mum was a Scorpio, and I really don't know if she knew or whatever, but by the time I realised how much it had messed me up, I guess, through my life. I have a lot of missing moments, whatever, but...
Do you have missing moments because you've intentionally
blocked out
stuff?
I don't know about intention. I think that your subconscious does it because you dissociate. And I actually think that, not saying I have all this multiplicity going on, but I've certainly got an alter ego that comes in and helps me when I'm feeling really meek and mild. It's a larger personality. And when I realise that there's any predatorish type of energy around me, or if someone's attacking me, look out. I think that there's one thing in my life, a movie called The Butterfly Effect. And there
I'd just say that on my list, it's on Netflix to watch that again, because I remember from years ago it was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ashton Kutcher's in it, and he plays a guy that goes from... It's sort of flashbacks, and then they go for what would have happened if it happened a different way, and they give you about 6 different scenarios. But there's one scenario in that when he's a little boy, and he's actually got the alcoholic father of the little girl that he was had to do the sex movies or something with, and he actually, in one of the, if this was the scenario, he actually verbally attacks the guy and goes, "Fucking touch us, you fucking fuck stick." Like, I was actually someone that would have a go at people from a young age, and I didn't realise the subconscious reason for that, which, if I'm getting attacked, I go into real attack mode, and that's a PTSD thing, that's from when I'm 2, but I guess the PTSD must have kicked in more when I'm 7, because I didn't know it was wrong in the back of my head for a start, and then when I did, I confronted him. So he actually choked me to death.
Oh, you confronted him at 7?
Yeah, and so he's actually grabbed me to shut me up round the neck and choked me to death.
Freaking out, realising that, okay.
And I had my first out-of-body experience when I was 7. I remember, I remember being near the ceiling, looking down and seeing me unconscious and my brother freaking out, and I don't know if he bargained with the black side or whatever, but it was just like, I'm in this moment, and then I must have decided I'd go back into my body and be unconscious, because after that he never touched me sexually again, but because I think the killing me for a few minutes or whatever had happened, or it had got real, I was definitely out of my body looking down. But whatever happened in that moment, he decided not to fuck me, but to fuck with me, which seems to be in a predator, that's all they do. They either fuck you or fuck with your head. So I'd always been jibed, for everything. It was a weird thing, because I know I've got a high IQ, and I know I'm reasonably genetically blessed, if you want to say, but it did a lot of things, even my sexual maturity. There's a couple of really personal things that happened, but I didn't menstruate till I was 22.
Okay.
And I didn't grow breasts. That's why I had them enhanced.
Yep.
And things like that. But, I don't know, what can I say? I've always been this eternal optimist. I'm not a pessimist. So lucky somehow in my makeup, whatever happens to me, I kind of seem to be able to keep going and brush it off or turn it into a joke, and some people think that's sick humour or whatever, but it's how I survive.
It's a way of coping.
Yeah.
So you said that it really came back to you when you had your child?
Yeah, when Hunter turned two, it was crazy. It was like someone had started movies in my head. Like I'd go to the giving, and I used to put a few lavender drops and this in his bath, because if it was before nap time or something like that, and I'd put my hand in to swirl the water around, and it would be like these movies were going through my head, and it felt like sitting on a train. It was the weirdest feeling, because I've sat on a stationary train and had another train move. It's a weird feeling, like you should be going or something. And I sort of was going, whoa, and all of these memories were coming back, and I was, like getting truth
goosebumps.
chills and getting really terrified. I had huge anxiety with Hunter, and the weirdest thing was I was in a relationship, I won't mention any names, but I was in a relationship for less than 2 years, but I'd kind of been predated by this guy to realise that it was a real mistake. But he'd been working on being the predator and me being the victim in the relationship sort of thing, and Hunter was 2, and I was so terrified that I was nearly crippled. And then I thought I sort of had to get out of the house where I was, and everything was crashing. My whole world was crashing in on me. And I remember having Hunter in the stroller, being in a main street and coming along, and there's this shop called The Bridge. And I remember going in there, and it was a healing crystal shop, and this book just fell off the shelf when I walked in there onto the ground, and it was The Quest of the Warrior Woman. And I picked it up, and the lady named Barbara that owned the shop, she's ended up closing that shop and moving to Ayers Rock or something, but I remember her saying to me, oh, you can have that book. And it was one of these auspicious moments, and that book was about the 7 arrows, and just honesty, integrity, courage. I won't rattle them all off now, but it was to do with that. And I just remember it gave me hope, and I read a few pages of that book, and it gave me the strength to change my life right at that moment. I could go home and stand up to this guy I was living with and decide that I was getting out of a relationship where I was predated basically all the time. So
how has that affected, like, these feelings that happen? Right, when Hunter's about 2, you're starting to get these remembrances. You're starting to sort of piece a few things together. Is that your phone?
Not my.
Whose phone is that?
Just let it go.
Just let it go.
Yeah, we won't. I think it's next door.
Okay. So you started having these feelings. How did that sort of affect you moving forward with your son?
Well, this is the thing. All my life, I've never been stuck, because I think I'm a Pisces and I'm a mutable person. So I'm never fixed with anything. So for me, I'm the great getting answers for things person. If there's a problem, I'm not going to be self-injurious and let that problem just keep affecting me. I need to move forward from it all the time. So I'm going to find some way of healing myself, or some way of looking into why this is going on. Because the one thing that I made a huge decision when I knew that I was pregnant with... See, I didn't even get pregnant with Hunter till I was 38, because I wasn't going to have kids, because I wasn't going to bring a child into the world that could be abused, you know?
I know exactly what you're saying, because I felt the same way because I was abused as a kid. And
I remember,
you know that.
Well, I know we've touched on that, but we haven't really delved too far in.
Yeah, well, I was abused from 6 till 12. And I've forgotten most of my childhood as well. Like whether it's intentional, this is why I asked you that question. So whether it's intentional or not intentional, I cannot remember.
It's just disassociating for your own protection, basically.
I think that's what it is. Your brain just blacks stuff out.
It does. It puts it in another place to protect you. Yeah. And that's what it does.
And it's really interesting. It's really scary, but it's quite annoying sometimes, because I'll have people go, oh, can't you remember that? I'm like, nope.
Because you actually freeze back at that time, and you have no memory of that, and it's your other dissociated personality that's getting you through that time.
Yep.
And I've, not just to do with abuse, but if I've had times that push me back into that anxious space, then sometimes I can disassociate for another year, and then I'll come back in, and then someone says to me, oh, blah, blah, I have this fantastic memory with lots of fine detail about lots of things, but there's some things I have nothing.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've done the same stuff. When I was growing up, and I didn't have my child until I was 42, so similar to you.
Similar to me, yep.
But I was always of the opinion I'm happy to not have a child because I didn't want to bring a child and cop the same stuff that I copped.
Exactly, and that's how I felt. And then, gosh.
Because that's our reality. It was. Our reality to the world is people hurt us and people fuck with you.
So you need to protect yourself.
So why have
someone else that's vulnerable or that you're going to be responsible for their vulnerability?
Yeah.
That was
It made me too sad. It made me sad to think about that I could bring someone else into the world and that shit can happen to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is where, look, I struggle a lot now because, I've tried to be brave enough for every now and again. When it all came up, like it's years later, and then I went to Heartfelt House. I did an 18-week course.
What's Heartfelt House?
It's to do with adult survivors of child sexual abuse.
Okay.
And at the time, they were only doing women's groups. It's up at, I think, in Bar or something. So I went there for 18 weeks. It nearly killed me, putting everything on the table, and I had so much coming up. And I'm sure, and you're in this really vulnerable position yourself, but they're telling you you're in a safe space. But out of 12 people, you're still a bit paranoid, like can I really trust these people? And then after a couple of weeks, I was really able to. You're doing a lot of writing as well. They're telling you to journal, and so it's bringing a lot of stuff up. But that, I cut off from my family for all sorts of reasons and different things. And actually, when my son turned 2, my brother, when my son was born, it was when he turned 2, everything started coming up. But when my son was born, I'd had a lot of contact with my brother, who was my abuser up till that point. And when my son was born, he was born 8 weeks preemie. And that, my life, it's like I'm a 1 in a million for good stuff and I'm a 1 in a million for bad stuff. But Hunter's birth was like an Amy commercial. And it happened 8 weeks early. And the ambulance guys dropped me up at Royal North Shore Hospital, and when I was coming out of the back of the ambulance, they were talking to their mate about a barbecue on Friday, typical Australian yobbo guys, and they turned around and hit the wrong button on the gurney, and the gurney started heading, and I'm at Royal North Shore, so I'm going down the middle of Royal North Shore driveway to the 6-lane Pacific Highway, and backwards, just in a gurney backwards.
It was just free
flowing with these 2 beer-gutted, overweight men running. They were like, I'm watching slow motion while I'm having no idea what's happening and whether a semi's going to hit me because I'm going backwards here, right? And the lady on the desk at maternity is almost standing up on the desk. I can just see her going, they've dropped her! And I'm flying backwards and can see all of this happening, and I'm just stunned. But thank God one of the old doctors had an old Rolls and he parked it and left the tyre sticking out. So my gurney's gone flying down, hit the tyre, and then catapulted up across the road up onto the grass and stopped. And I'm like freaking out, and like they'd taken me to Royal North Shore Hospital as a precaution so that I didn't have the baby because I had a slow leak, and he was born an hour later, And the whole thing was really funny because I'd seen a movie called Crash, which was this cult movie it had this Dr. Vaughan in it, and he was really spooky and scary, and I'd just seen that movie. And because I'm, at North Shore Hospital, I didn't have my obstetrician or anything, it was all emergency. This doctor called Dr. Fowler walks in, and he looked exactly like Vaughan out of the movie. And I just went, what? And he goes, I'm not Vaughan. Like this to me straight away. So he'd obviously seen or other people had said something to him. And then the nurse walks in and she's got a label called Sister Dangerfield. I really thought that everyone was having a go at me. And I'm and then Hunter's born and it's 8 weeks early and he's really preemie and it was really serious. And, in the first week I could burst into tears because he was just under 2 kilos when he was born and he went down in the first week to about 1,500 grams because he could only be fed formula. I'd had no cholesterol or anything, nothing in my boobs because it's 8 weeks early and you're pumping away like a mad thing and nothing's happening. So you actually the babies have to be fed with formula. And I'm wheat allergic, so's Hunter. And in baby formula, there's whey and wheat and all sorts of things. So I didn't have any idea, and he's basically dying in front of my eyes. And I looked up at the window in the hospital, and the sunlight was coming in, and it just was. And I was begging for an answer. It was really, really weird. But I kind of feel like there was some sort of divine intervention right at that moment because the sunshine came on this formula tin that was like on a windowsill. And I went, that's the answer, and I got one of the nurses in the it's called neonatal ICU, it's the NIC unit, and you go, and I ran over to one of the nurses and I said, can you please change his formula? And she said, we can't do that. And they started, getting all official with me because I'm tattooed and body pierced and things like that. And they're Tricini type nurses and I'm out of the box, so I need to be spoken to like a 3-year-old. I wouldn't know anything about my own son. So I'm having an argument with these nurses about changing the formula up, and then I just said, get me my doctor on the phone, and I rang the doctor and he said, Mother knows best, and over the phone he changed the formula. We changed it to soy rather than just the normal milk, and there's no whey or anything in it. It was just all pure soy. And from this shrinking Violet, within like 2 weeks, he just looked like a tomato in a hothouse. He'd just become this normal baby. But it's funny how your mind works, because having a baby that's 2 months preemie, they're so tiny. He was about the size of a beanie toy. Yeah. And when I walked through the normal ward, I thought, what's wrong with those babies? They all look like they're from Land of the Giants. Yeah, it's really funny how your mind works like that. So
he's a good kid, Hunter.
Oh gosh,
how old is he now? He's 21.
21. Yep. Yeah. I'm actually really proud that I bought somebody that contributes into the world rather than some criminal-minded child. No, he's fantastic kid.
How's it been being a single mum, raising a boy by yourself?
Difficult because everything, even when he plays sport or whatever I go, it's a very male-oriented world. You have a son, you're walking into a male-dominated world, basically. And a lot of people still now have an idea or a connotation that to be a single mum is bad, especially if people are religious. They're supposed to be a little bit caring and a bit cool these days, but I find that there's a lot of judgment, discrimination against something like that. Yeah, I've been up against that for 21 years, basically, or right up until he finished school anyway. And I had to keep reminding him that just because there's prejudice like that, or some other kids at school will say stuff about your mum or anything, turn around and give it to them back. Tell them it's another story about me that'll blow their socks off.
There's a lot of stories about you that'll blow their socks off.
And having him not be a smart ass, but just be brave enough to stand up for himself.
Accept the reality of what is.
Exactly. And he went to martial arts from 7 years of age, and he's been playing rugby union since he was 7. Got himself a gold medal when he about 16 or 17, and he said, I can retire now. And I was like, perfect, because, if he's going off to uni, he's actually doing chemical engineering, 6-year course. He's very, very bright at maths. He's like, top 7% of the state in maths. And that was a trip too, because as a little kid, he's always been good at maths. 2 or 3 years of age, he used to add up my shopping in the trolley and be able to tell me, like, within $1 or $2 what it was going to cost me.
Yeah, wow.
And I used to, you know, be really proud of that, but you don't want to brag about it because I already cop enough shit from people, you know. So anyway, just encourage that.
Yeah.
And he's been shy because he doesn't have a dad in his life. Unfortunately, his father was from America.
Yeah, that's a strange story, that one, isn't it? Because the dad never
had anything to do with him. No, because he was a
footy player, wasn't he?
A gridiron, like I guess American football player that had done really well but got a shoulder injury just at the end of college. So when he was about to get picked for the, you know, Chicago Bears or something, it all went sideways with injury. So I think he had a lot of resentment deep down on that, you know.
What were you so you were over in America at that stage when you met him.
Yeah, it was about...
What were you doing? Is that when you were doing that, the jelly wrestling and all that sort of stuff?
That was a few years before. I was table dancing when I met his dad.
Okay.
That was the middle of winter in a Chicago table dancing club, and one of the really upmarket ones, the Dollhouse at Chicago. And you know, you had to buy $1,000 dresses to be allowed to work in that club. Like, it was very, very upmarket, and a lot of very, very wealthy men from all around the world would go to that club. So, because Chicago, the big money market of the world, and Hunter's dad worked at the Board of Trade, Chicago. He was a stockbroker. So I remember being up on this pedestal in the club in a bit of dental floss. It was only a topless club, so we had pants on. But
the $1,000 dress didn't stay on too long.
No, that was for the parades and all that sort of stuff. But I remember being on the pole and being a 12, and the front doors burst open. It was like a movie scene, and a bit of snow came in, and he's 6'7", right? So he commands.
Well, he's a big football player.
Yeah, and but a big Chicago white boy, you know, just very handsome, looked like Val Kilmer a bit, the movie star. So he's this moment of stepping in the door, and he had this big cashmere coat on, and just walked in, and it was like he just commanded the place, and everyone in the whole place, it just stopped for a minute, turned around, and everyone sort of like went back from his energy a little bit. And I sort of looked down and thought, God, he looks pretty hot, or something like that. And so I was actually looking at him, and he came walking through, and I was actually dancing for someone else. So I think I turned around and put my butt in their face, and I was looking at the door thinking, wow, he's really attracted me. And as he came past, he looked up at me and he pointed at me, and he went and sort of winked. But, you know, there was just this kind of flirty charmer thing about him. And he goes, I'll be back to see you. And one mouthed that at me and walked off. And I'm thinking, oh, they say that to all the girls a bit, you know, it's the club, don't get too caught up in it. And I got down from the table, and what you classically do is you chat to the person who's been, inverted commas, dancing you for the last half an hour or something. And if you're on a good roll with that person, you're not going to wreck it just because someone else has walked into the place. And
when you're on a sure thing, stick to it.
That's exactly right. So I'm kind of in this headspace of where I'm trying to concentrate and talk to this customer, but I can only thinking about Alton. So there was definitely a crazy soul attraction from the second our eyes met, if that makes any sense. And then he realised that I was with the client. He knew how the club worked. So after probably about an hour, he sort of wandered past and brushed past, and as soon as we touched each other, it was just mad electricity. So I was really like, I got to talk to this guy. So it was the first time ever that I sort of backed out of the good thing after I'd milked it a little bit.
Chase the heart instead of the pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got talking, and then we ended up dating for about a year. And we went to some really exciting things, like he had quite a high, excuse me, social standing over there, being from the Board of Trade, and he took me to a few amazing balls and things, like where the museum at in Chicago, the massive big museum. They closed it all down and had a ball there. So we're dancing under dinosaur bones and things, you know, and it was just incredible. It was just like this elite society, and I hadn't really experienced stuff like that. And he had some really cool friends that were extremely wealthy, and we'd get to go away for like Labor Day weekend. I remember the weekend Lady died, you know, I was away having this kind of cool weekend where there was a big lake and big cigarette boats and mansions and all sorts of things. And I remember we were staying there that weekend. And yeah, those sort of moments come back and forward into my mind. But Chicago, it reminds me of Gotham City. You know, when you're looking at a Batman movie and everything's that solid and old, and it's not creepy in Chicago, but there's so much old money that everything is state of the art. I mean, not every. I mean, they've definitely got their black areas like Cabrini Green and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm just talking about probably the heart and soul of Chicago. And
so, how long were you with him for?
Probably 12 months to 14 months while I was in America, and then I left to come home, and
you weren't pregnant at this stage?
No. He was going to join me. You know, he'd been saying how much he wanted to come and live in Australia and change everything around and come and live, loved me and wanted to come and live with me. But when I actually left, he said he would be over here in 3 weeks, and it took him 3 months to get here. So by the time, it was nearly Christmas time by the time he arrived, and I felt no connection when he got off the plane. It was strange, but there was something different going on. So I guess for about 6 weeks he was either trying hard to avoid me, or we were just trying hard to maybe get it to work again after, and I wasn't really trusting anything. And it turns out down the track, I found out that as soon as I left America, he'd gotten together with someone else.
Someone else, yeah.
So he'd been with someone else for 3 months. That's why he wasn't in a hurry to come out here. And I wish that he just had been honest about that, because then probably I wouldn't have ended up in the position. But then again, I've got to turn around and say that I really want Hunter and love Hunter in my life, and I wouldn't have him if this didn't happen. So anyway, it got to be my birthday, which was March the following year. And everyone needs a root on their birthday.
Yes, you do.
So I guess I'd been at work and he'd been not working, and he'd managed to find my alcohol cupboard that had even a bottle of ouzo from when I was in jail in Greece, which is another story, that we were saving for the girls to have a reunion in 10 years' time, and we were all going to drink this bottle, not this one, but we all took our own one. It's a kind of a long story. Anyway, he drank every drop of everything that was in that cupboard, and he was passed out face down on the couch when I walked in the back door with 2 halves of a lobster, which looked like a king prawn because they were the smallest ones I'd ever seen, burnt to a crisp under the griller with smoke. I was lucky he hadn't burnt the house on fire. And that was supposed to be my big birthday dinner. So I just basically looked at him and thought, fuck you, and went to bed. And of course he wakes up with a hangover and a hard-on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm half asleep. And all I could think about in my head was, oh God, okay, it's a birthday root, I guess, and joke. And I was reaching for the condoms. We broke this new packet, broke 8 condoms. So I guess Hunter was supposed to happen.
Wow.
Because I got pregnant on my birthday. And so then Alton didn't like it when I said I was pregnant, because he was a lot younger than me, and probably like 10 years younger than me. And he said, I'm just not ready for kids. And so I said, well, actually I was 4 months pregnant before I found out I was pregnant. So got pregnant on my birthday. It was March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, July about before I realised I was even pregnant. I thought I had Giardia because I was crawling around the house throwing up, and I was living in Narrabeen in Sydney, and there was a Giardia outbreak there in the water supply. So I had a really funny Greek doctor back then, and I remember ringing Temmie's office and booking in and like, can you do a house call? Because I'm saying, oh, no, we're not doing that. So I crawled down to the doctor's office, and he was worried sick when he looked at me because I was just green and throwing up, and it was just, and he goes, oh my God, I've never seen it. Quick, we better get a blood test. And it's this Giardia parasite and all of this. And then the next day I got a phone call, come down urgently, and I walked into his office and he had this piece of paper in his hand waving it, and he goes, parasite, all right, it's a human one. And I went, what? And he goes, you're over 4 months pregnant. And I went, couldn't be. I've been having my period the whole time. And he goes, oh God, get around for an ultrasound. So we went for an ultrasound, and
so you've been having a period every month during the pregnancy?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that was because I'd miscarried a twin. So Hunter was still in my womb. So we went round for the ultrasound. There's Hunter here in his little sack, and here's an empty sack. So they weren't identical, or they'd be in the same sack, but they were zygote twins. So I lost one of the twins. And apparently your body goes into only letting that like miscarried one out the same time as your cycle.
Wow.
And I had some spotting, some crazy spotting in around April or whatever. You know, like it just wasn't, it just was this 1 in a million thing that happened. And I ended up with Hunter, and no other baby. But it kind of worked out. I was a bit sad that I didn't have the opportunity. I would have loved twins, like that would have been cool as. But at the same time, with me ending up as a single mother, it ended up being a bit of a godsend in a way. You know, like I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And how does Hunter, like, when did Hunter know about, I suppose, your past? Have you always been open and honest with him about it?
Yeah, always. I never lie to him. I've never lied to him in his life, and I never will. And
has he spoken to you about it? Like, actually expressed his thoughts and feelings and you know, the way he's processed it? Has he expressed that at all?
I guess a little. I guess I probably don't really go there. If there's a problem, we'll address it. But he's never brought it up to me as a problem, because he's cool with everything. Yeah. You know, I have some pretty amazing friends too in my life, and Hunter's met all of them, you know, and from every walk of life, they've all met him, and he's always been able to have good conversation. Like, I used to joke, because I'd go to parties or whatever, and I'd always have my eye on him. But if I didn't have my eye on him for 2 minutes, he'd be in the kitchen talking to a couple of adults holding court. Like, and I'd think to myself, there's a song called You'll Always Find Him in the Kitchen at Parties. Well, that was Hunter.
Now, speaking of parties, being a Penthouse Pet, being an exotic dancer, you've gone to some parties.
Yes, huge.
And you've met some people.
Yep. And all across the board.
All around the place.
Yeah.
But first of all, before we get into party, I'm sure it had to be a party that led to the jailing in Greece. There must have been a party.
Oh, that was dancing.
Okay.
So I'm table dancing. I've table danced all over the world. But first of all, the wrestling and stuff. I guess I should probably go through a bit chronologically how this happened. So it starts off as modelling in Sydney that ends up sort of getting me to go over to America to model. So I'd gone, I was with, I ended up modelling for Chadwick's, and then having a massive car accident when I was 19 and a half. And I went through a windscreen and had 200 stitches in my face. Oof. So I walk into Chadwick's 2 weeks later to tell them I need some time off. And in his, I
need a few weeks off just to fix this up.
And in his gay wisdom, good old Peter Chadwick's looked at me and said, "Oh, nice legs, shame about the face." Took me off the books. Yeah. So then, a couple of years later, my face had healed up, and you know, I don't know, people were still asking me to do a bit of modelling work, but it wasn't Chadwick's. It was for friends who, I don't know, had a ladder mate or something, and they needed to have a catalogue or something. So I was doing a little bit here and there. And then Wayne Wigham, who was a first grade footballer for Balmain Rugby League, I'd been a friend of his since I was about 16.
Yeah, I met Wayne a few months ago.
Yeah. So he knew Tracy Wallace, who was Pet of the Year 1980, I believe. I think it was 1980. She was Pet of the Year. She ended up marrying the singer from Dire Straits. So there's all this world of Penthouse Pets and Rockstars and all this.
They go together, don't they?
Yeah, well, just starting to open up in my head that this was a reality.
Yeah.
And Wayne showed Tracy some modelling shots of me, and Tracy was like, God, and I had, you know, really long hair down to my butt, and it was a beautiful photo on the beach and everything. And Tracy was like, will she do Penthouse? And Wayne said, I'm sure, because she can't model for Chadwick's anymore. So, you know, if you guys will have a modelling for, I'm sure she will.
Is this before the table dancing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, so then I ended up going in to meet the people at Penthouse, and I remember Sue Smith was the name of the lady that used to get the girls organised for the centrefolds and whatnot. And Andrew Cowell was the editor. So I went and met them, and they were just like, yep, you're in, we'll go and get some test shots, but just looking at you, perfect. So I went and had the test shots done. And then, in between, I'd had all my hair cut off after Wayne had showed them the photos. So they were like, oh my God, where's your long hair? You know, it was just one of those things back in that day. But they ended up going, no, that's cool that you've got short hair now. You actually look like Olivia Newton-John used to in that physical time.
Oh, yeah.
So they decided to theme my shoot around that. And I think they tricked a few people into thinking that maybe Olivia Newton-John was in a Penthouse centrefold because of the front cover of the way it was. If you glanced at it quickly, you had to do a double take because they had me with the headband. Yeah. Very embarrassing, those photos out of that particular centrefold.
Well, it was the 80s, wasn't it?
And so I did those photos in March 83, and they all came out. It was July 1983 was the first edition of Penthouse that I ever did. And then I did another one. I went off to America then and tried to get some modelling in America, and that was interesting because I ended up in a couple of predatory kind of moments there where a couple of directors and things. And like I'm driving, I had a little tiny Honda to drive over there, and when you're on a freeway in a Honda with all the Cadillacs, you're kind of running the gauntlet. And I'd driven up to this house in Beverly Hills for an interview, big gates and all this sort of stuff, and I went in. The guy looked like David Niven on a bad day in a robe and slippers when I opened the door, and I thought, this is all a bit creepy. And then he told me that I needed to do the interview for the movie in the hot tub. I was just like,
this is the start of the whole Me Too thing, isn't it?
Yeah, really, like that. Like, it was just creepy. So I was like, what's the movie about? A talking koala or something? He said, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I got so creeped out just stepping into the place. I was like, I don't have my bathing suit for the spa. That's what I said.
He would have gone, that's okay.
Exactly, David. You've got the lines down.
That's okay. Come on in. Look, if it makes you feel more comfortable.
So I just turned around and ran back to my little Honda and started driving out of there. And as I was driving out of there, the gates started closing. And it was like another movie moment in my life where I felt like I just got through these gates in this tiny little car. Thank God I didn't have a Cadillac or I wouldn't have been going anywhere. But, you know, these are these moments I sort of get out of this situation and I'm like, oh, and it's almost like, how close was that to me being in a very awkward situation?
Wow.
But this is this 10% of caution that I have going on with myself that I speak about to people, and I just go, don't know where it comes from, but it's a bit, I'm not self-injurious, even though I've had all this abuse and everything else. I have like a limit on my self-injury. Where, I love my tattoos and I love to bleed because I think it's very healing, and I go into this really healing, cathartic space. And these things really help me in, I guess, my soul's desperation is what I want to call those moments, because your soul remembers everything.
Have you ever been self-injurious at all? Like, have you ever had thoughts, because of the shit that's happened in your life, have you ever had thoughts of self-harming or just walking away from everything?
I think I've got the answer to that is that I've got a pretty high IQ. Like, even though I haven't really explored that, I'm not pushed it, but I've made openings for my son, so he's now able to go to university. I would have been a great university candidate. When I was at school, they wanted me to go to vocational guidance and go to this special school for smart kids. And my mother said, no, it'll give you a big head. You know, how do you work that out?
Got to pull your head in, kiddo.
I have never been, my parents never let it happen for me. I think my mum was a Scorpio. There was a certain amount of weird jealousy went on with her. I don't know how to explain it, but I was the third child that she didn't want. So from the second I was in her womb, I was going to be the third wheel. Mum had OCD and she had her pigeon pair, my brother and sister, and they were only 3 years apart. And I sort of came along 8 years after my sister in a moment of, I think Mum and Dad had a lot of angst with their parents. Maybe Mum's mother died or something like that. So Dad's way of consoling her was obviously cuddle, and that led to sex or whatever, and I don't think they'd had any in a while. And then I came of that. And my dad was really, I remember my dad being really proud of me and really proud that he could have a child. I didn't think, maybe in his head he didn't think he could have any more, or he wasn't manly enough, or God knows. But Dad had a big background with depression because he'd run away when he was 14 to join the Navy, and he was fighting in Indonesia on the HMS Gascoigne, pretty much jumping onto islands, bayoneting Japanese to death and being in conflict and all this sort of stuff, and he's 14, you know? Like, what does that do to your head?
How the hell did he get into the army at 14?
A Navy.
A Navy?
I've looked it up on computer. His father signed him in.
Wow.
Like, how heavy is that?
Yeah.
I've got a son. When he was 14, he was still a child. You know, like, even though he was mature enough on some level, there's such a child there in a 14-year-old.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
imagine how much that must have fucked with his head.
You got to know. You got to know. My dad, I saw him sitting, you know, my mum, we were living in the western suburbs of Sydney at that stage. I was born in when we were living in Leichhardt, and then we moved out to Tilapia, where Dad was able to build this house. We had a block of land 3 blocks back from the front of the beach at Harbord. Apparently the family owned that, and Dad sold it to build a package deal that he didn't have to think anything more about. You know, apparently Harbord was going to be something that was continually expensive. Dad, in his depression, if you know what I mean, he made some really different choices.
Well, he must have been suffering
shocking depression.
PTSD for sure.
Yeah, really bad PTSD. And so you didn't notice that, but he was a big drinker.
Yeah.
Which is why I rarely drink these days. I love a good wine with my dinner.
But you used to drink.
I used to drink and get smashed when I was on, you know, party and all of that. Yeah, God, I'd drink and be as rowdy as all buggery. Yeah.
You would actually, I remember you physically and emotionally changing as a person once you got drinks.
That's the alter ego that my gay friend from Ballarat, Brad, calls Rose Cunthead. That's what he gives her the name. And so we talk in code and we call her Conthead when we're talking just in general when there's other people around.
Yeah.
But he calls her Rose Cunthead. And he said she gets you out of some of the weirdest situations when you're as rowdy as all fuck and you have no recollection. And knowing that about myself, when I had my son, I stopped drinking. So I stopped drinking for a very long time, and now I'll have a bloody good red with a good piece of steak, 2 glasses, and that'll do me. I'm just not a drinker. It's like bad medicine for me. Yeah.
Speaking of...
Bad medicine.
Speaking of bad medicine, wow, what a segue that is. Bad medicine.
Oh my God, it wasn't meant to be a segue.
I know, that cracks me up because bad medicine, actually, you know what? Bad medicine was a song that I remember vividly that Terry Bowie, who was in the Penthouse Pet show, used in...
you guys did. It was me. I did the naughty nurse.
Was it you that
Yeah.
used it? Oh, get out.
Yeah, so it was Bad Medicine was it was me running on stage.
Yeah,
and
but then Terry, did the other girls come out with you, or was it just you?
No, they used it later on for a duo or something, but I used it for my
And you
my
get
solo.
a guy up on stage
and wrap his head up in the bandage so he couldn't
that's
see,
right.
and pretend to take his temperature rectally,
Yes,
and all
that's
sorts
right, all sorts of
dreadful,
crazy stuff.
crazy little nursey things.
But that song, sung by Bon Jovi.
John Bon Jovi.
And we spoke briefly a little bit ago about the Penthouse Pets and Rockstars.
Oh yeah, and don't they love their Penthouse Pets?
They love them.
And Bon Jovi, the band.
Yeah.
Back in the day when there was Richie and David and John and Alex, John Such and Tico. They're the five that were in that band when I first originally met them. And I guess I was using Bad Medicine for my first song in my solo for a long, long time. And this is another thing, like being on in the Penthouse show, because I guess I didn't get to that, did I really? I ended up going to America, doing all that stuff, doing wrestling and foxy boxing and learning to table dance and all of that. Ended up coming back to Australia, and Terry Bowie was getting the Penthouse Pet show together and the Pet Party show, and she said, want to come and see how you go? So I was like, yep, joined the Pet show, and we started going on the road. And then Patrick Pendergrast, who is his family-owned New Breed Security, they were our security on our Victorian parts of the tour. And Paddy was just this big, strong, but really gentle, gorgeous man. And instantly I felt like I had a soul brother. Patrick and I have just got on so well from the second we met each other. And he really used to look after us and care for us. And then he ended up doing security with Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi loved Patrick, and they just took him. So they said, New Breed, even your family business can't have you. You're going to be our head of security and you're going to travel with us forevermore. And so Patrick was just then with Bon Jovi. And then as it turned out, he went from being security to their tour manager after a couple of years. Well, when he was still doing their security, and the Seabull townhouse in Sydney still existed, and it didn't...
Weren't you living at the Seabull?
No, we weren't living there. We just used to practically live there. But they were staying at the Seabull, and John had asked Patrick. He just said, I'd really like someone to come and dance for me. Like, I just like visuals. Of course you would. I just want visuals. But I can't go to a strip club because I'm too famous to walk in there and everyone knows about it. And Patrick goes, I'm best friends with all the Penthouse Pets. Well, they nearly died, and they were just like, can you organise us something? And Patrick gets on the phone to me, and he knew that I did the pet show, but when we were off tour, I would do party grams. I'd go around to people's places at a 21st and do a strippogram.
Yeah, wow.
So anyway, Patrick called me and he said, oh, Suze, I'm just wondering, can you do one of your stripograms? And I went, oh yeah, what sort of a party is it, $1? And he goes, no. It's just for one person. And I went, oh, Patrick, that's a bit creepy. Doing a dance for one person. And he goes, oh, just that they've got a bit of high profile and they can't really go out to like a strip club or that. And since you've done Penthouse, I thought you were a bit of the top of the pile with it all. Would you mind coming to do? And I went, oh God, all right. And he goes, it's at the Seabull. I can meet you down in the lobby. And I said, when do you want this? And he goes, oh, as soon as possible. So I went, oh, no, I'll be there in 2 hours, I guess, because I lived up at Avalon on the Northern Beaches in Sydney. And anyway, I said, what outfit does he want? The nurse, the copper, the this, the that. I just did all my whole repertoire to him. And he goes, oh, I don't know. I said, so I don't know if you'll understand the schoolgirl because they don't really have uniforms in America. And he said, and the cop uniform probably won't, you haven't got an American cop uniform. And I said, no. And he goes, do something else that he won't be confused what it is. And I went, the nurse. I mean, I didn't even say that to Patrick. I just thought in my head, I'll do the naughty nurse. Perfect. So, because I have no idea who this person is at this stage. So pack my tape. Oh, back then we used cassettes to put into a cassette player. Showing my age now. Golly. Geez, it would have been so convenient now just to press your phone and be able to do your solo.
Just use your phone, stick a little, have the little Bluetooth speaker. How good would that be?
That would have been so simple.
The kids have got it made these days.
The production we had to do back then. Anyway, so I burn off into the Seville townhouse, meet Patrick in the lobby, and he takes me right up to the, you know, the big penthouse suite at the top, which I'd been in once or twice before because I'd known Sting in younger days. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, I've gone up to the room and Patrick puts me in this bathroom that's as big as a house, basically, and I'm getting ready and just putting my bits and pieces on. And he said to me, just let me know when you're ready. And so I've gone, Patty, I'm ready. Here's my tape.
And he didn't tell you who it was?
No. Here's a tape to put on out in the tape player that's out in the lounge of the big penthouse. And he goes, do you want me to crank it? And I went, bloody oath. Don't do it any other way, mate. You know, and anyway, started, I'm in my naughty nurse outfit with a bit of my comedy stuff on because I still, doesn't matter who it is, I'm comfortable to do the routine that I've got in my head. So the music starts, it's Bad Medicine starting off as loud as you get it, and I come running out of the room and there's fucking John Bon Jovi sitting on the couch in a tight pair of Calvins and a white t-shirt looking like a goddamn Calvin Klein commercial. Like, he looked so gorgeous just sitting there. And I came flying out and just stopped, and I went, oh, how embarrassing. Would you like me to change the music? And he sat back, and I could already see that he was starting to get a bit tight in his jeans, and he went, darling, keep going. I've been waiting for this all my life. And he just sat back like a pig in shit watching me strip to Bad Medicine 3 inches from, you know, like his face. And there was other songs on there. I think it goes to Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, and then it went to Bad Case of Loving You or something like that. You know, like, I don't know, there was a few songs on there. But, yeah, talk about hot and steamy and the most personal bloody dance I've ever done in my life.
And that sort of began...
Oh, it began a madness.
A long-standing...
friendship.
Yeah.
I've been... I mean, they just flew me to Sydney, a year ago to be front and foremost at the... Put me up the Shangri-La, you know, just kind of front and foremost at the stage, 30-year anniversary of knowing them.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so kind of cool. But,
and was that the only time you danced for him?
The dance for him, you know, like in that personal space, yes, but party with them continually, and they ended up meeting all the Penthouse Pets. I mean, it was a couple of years later than that when I first met them, and they were touring again, and they had my phone number, and so I used to talk to them and stuff. Like, yeah, it was kind of cool. It was. I became their friend, and so was Patrick, and so Patrick was then like my brother, if you know what I mean, and it just became a tight knit. Like, I became part somehow in this Bon Jovi extended family, and everyone was saying he was the most married man in America. And so I'm not on this earth to try and get John Bon Jovi to be my boyfriend or my partner, but if there's some fun to be had, man, I'm in it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm no home wrecker, but I know how to have fun, and I know how to make everyone around me get in a really good party mood rather than, you know, think about any troubles at all. There's nothing untoward about it, you know what I mean? It's fun. If it stops being fun, it's finished. And that's how it goes.
And you briefly mentioned Sting before, and like we're sitting in your lounge room at the moment, and you just brought up some old memories for me and showed me some of your old photos, and one of them is this, it's a new, the New Weekly from back in 1996, and there's an article in there.
Yes.
And it's titled "My Fling with Sting," and it's got Sting in some weird yoga pose with his leg up in the air.
Yeah, because he's into tantric sex.
Yeah. And was he?
That was amazing, because that was actually the pet of, I met Sting at the Pet of the Year party when I did when you do a Penthouse Centrefold.
They have a massive party.
They have a massive party at the end of the year, and they actually the Pet of the Year votes go for about 3 months in the magazine. And then, so anyway, 83 I did that first centrefold, and I was really good friends with this lady, Vicky, that used to work on the desk and that in there, and she was a great mate of mine. And, we became great mates, and then Sue Smith was pretty good, and I knew Andrew Cowell really well, and that became my Penthouse family. I don't know how to explain that, but that's kind of what they make you feel really comfortable, and anything you need, and you do your centrefold, and then you do like a year of promotions for them. So you're out at the Bathurst 100, and you're here and there, and you're meeting all sorts of famous people and all sorts of amazing situations. There was too many for me to even, think of, let alone rattle them all off. But the Pet of the Year party, it's about a week before, and Vicky rings me and she goes, "You've won." And I went, "Shut up, don't say shit like that. That's not how it works. I don't want to know anything." She's going, "I'm the one counting the votes, man, and I'm telling you, you've won." And I was just like, no. Anyway, turns out that Andrew Cowell was having an affair with Donna Turner, who was the Pet of the Month for September.
Yep, I remember Donna. She was in the show for a little while.
No, that was Donna from New Zealand, different Donna.
Oh, different Donna.
Yeah, this one, Donna... Donna Turner, you've met. Yeah, no, it's I can't remember this Donna's name.
There's a lot of Donnas. I remember a few Donnas.
I can't remember this Donna's name now, sorry. Anyway, this Donna won the Pet of the Year at the Pet of the Year party, and Sting and everyone had come to watch the party, and in a weird way I had my really short hair, and a lot of people said, "Oh, you and Sting look like twins or something."
I was just thinking that, looking at this photo right now, that you guys
actually look a bit alike in some weird way. Yeah. So anyway, I'm on stage getting, runner-up or whatever the bloody hell it was, and Doug Mulray was on Triple M at the time.
Yep, Uncle Doug.
And he was sitting with the surfer Mark Warren, who I'd also dated years before, so I knew Mark really well. And Doug was screaming out at the top of his voice, "What a rip-off, Miss July should have won," and all of this, and I'm dying, sorry, and I'm dying and going, "Oh, what the hell, this is the craziest night." But I was pissed off because I'd been told I was going to win, and I didn't want to believe it, and then I knew I shouldn't have even had that thought even in my head that I might have, kind of crazy. So I ended up going back to my room a bit pissed off and thinking I'll have a drink, and, got back up to my room, and Doug and Mark came with me, and they were like, "You should have won, this is the biggest rip-off we've ever witnessed," and they were hugging me and kissing me, and Doug had just bought a new Jaguar, and he goes, "I know how we'll change your mood. Come and I'll take you for a drive in the new car." So we got in his Jag and we went flying from the Seabull over the Harbour Bridge at about 300 miles an hour in this Jag, turned around in North Sydney, came back, and, I was pretty much in a better mood by then. And then they said their goodbye, got me back to the room, said my goodbyes, and Doug goes, "I'm going to be all over the radio at 6 in the morning about this." And I went, no, just leave it out. It's all good. And he goes, "That's the biggest fucking rip-off I've ever witnessed." Anyway, as it goes, I'm back in the room. It's probably 1 or something in the morning by about this stage. And there's a little knock at the door, and I open the door, and there's Sting standing there with a bottle of Cointreau. And I actually said, "Sorry, darling, I'm not in the mood. I've just lost the Pet of the Year. I'm depressed, and I'm not going to be good company." And he went, "Are you kidding? Can't I cheer you up?" And I went, "No, seriously, I really can't." And he just looked at me like, I don't know if that had ever happened to him before, but I really was in a really bad state.
Yeah, you were pissed
so I
off.
just shut the door in his face, and that was that. Anyway, there's 500 messages come through. I had to sleep. There's, when the light used to flash on the phone in the hotel room. And there was about 500 messages from Sting saying, "Do you want to come to the show? And do you want to do this? And you want to do that?" So that night, I got to stand first time ever in my life at a rock show where there was, you know, over 10,000 people in the crowd. And first time I ever experienced to have that kind of level of excitement and noise and everything go through your body, because when you're on stage, that's what happens. That whole crowd just comes at you, and and that was like, I guess, where I was christened a bit into rock and roll, if you know what I mean. And anyway, then they were touring all around Australia, so he flew me around Australia a bit. I had to do, even though Donna won the Pet of the Year, the next morning she was on TV. Doug Mulray was all over the radio going, Miss July should have won. Oh, it was terrible. And then Donna got up on, Gordon Elliott used to do the morning show on Channel 10.
Yep.
And he was a bit of a scallywag. And so he gets Donna on for a live interview, and she's still in the same dress that she had on at the Pet of the Year party, with all wine stains and probably semen stains all down the front of it. That's a bit of a dig, isn't it? Sorry.
It is a bit of a dig.
Anyway,
hey, you know,
anyway, he's seen the state she's in, because she's still half cut from the night before. And he goes, oh, that's a lovely dress you're wearing. Why don't you get up and give us a twirl? And she went into a half twirl and fell flat on her face. Andrew Cow was instantly sacked from Penthouse. Donna had a Pet of the Year touring privileges and promotions and everything taken off her. So they rang me and said, not the prizes, but you can have everything else. You do all the Penthouse promotions, and you do this and you do that. And, you know, it was pretty good money in that. So I said, yeah, all right, I'll take that on. And then they wanted me to run the promotion agency, and that was another story. That we started that up, called Penthouse Promotions or something, and did that for about 12 months, trying to set everyone up that were other centrefolds, but trying to get Donna Burns to go to a signing or something like that was like almost impossible. So yeah, it was a crushing year of my life, but at the same time, again, met lots of people, had lots of crazy times.
So you've had this life, literally, sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's been your life.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you've met amazing people, you've done amazing things, you've been around the world.
At the end of the day, everyone is human and everyone is normal. And if you go in at a humble, respectful level, you'll get that back from almost anyone I've ever met in the world.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. What I want to ask is, going from that insane lifestyle, which most, and I say this in inverted commas, you know, normal people would look at that and just go, holy shit, that is mind-blowing.
Well, most
some of
normal
that
people
stuff.
don't believe me.
Yeah, they wouldn't believe it.
They never believe any story.
And look, I can testify to it because I've known you for the last 30 years.
And you've been with me in half of the story.
And I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And how do you now, because you're approaching 60, and we had this conversation only a little while ago. You're 60 next year.
Yeah.
And
not that I want to admit that.
Not that you want to admit that, but, you know, it's
can
life,
I just
isn't
say
it?
one thing? I feel like maybe I'm 30 at the most.
Yeah.
These days I walk past the mirror and I look at it and I get a shocking fright because I feel about 30 and I don't think I'm looking 60, but I'd be looking 50, and I never thought that I just doesn't match my soul.
So how do you emotionally deal with that transition from this, you know, and because I know a lot of people who have been, I mean, the life you lived was
huge,
and it was very egocentric, you know, even though you might not have taken it that way, it was still, and a lot of people that live in that life live very egocentrically. It's like, it's addicting to get that.
It is, but that's energetic,
attention.
right?
Yeah.
And from the start, like I said, I'm Piscean.
Yep.
I've been blessed with knowing about spirit. I'm not religious. I'm all about spirit. It's the universe for me.
Yep.
And luckily, from a very young age, my grandfather was someone who told me about Saint Germain.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And call on the, you know, just the purple light for protection if you're ever in a bad moment. And that was when I was about 8. He died, so it was a year after my abuse finished from my brother. And you know, I'm sure if Pop knew, he would have killed my brother. You know what I mean? But Pop died when I was 8. And just before he died, he just said, you know, you're the old soul. You're the one that needs to know about this. And he didn't have the conversation with anyone else. So
has that helped you
through
that
it's given
transition?
me total balance. So even though I've had all my abuse, it kind of balanced, it gave me the healing that I needed right then. And then as I've gotten on, because I'm part of the universe, it's like books fall out at my feet and different things. It's crazy. But even I've avidly travelled. I've nearly been around the whole world, and I've climbed the Himalaya mountains, you know, trekked to Jomson and from Pokhara and all this. And I was in Kathmandu, walk into a bookstore there where there's hundreds of books written in languages from all over the world. And I'd lost the Quest of the Warrior Woman that I got at the Bridge of Life. I'd given it to someone to read or whatever, and they misplaced it. That book fell out of the shelf again at my feet when I walked in to that shop in Kathmandu. Or it didn't fall out, but that was the one, you know, like it just basically it just was there on the thing, and it just sort of made itself known. I think it fell sideways or something like that. It didn't actually like fly out at my feet again like the one did at the bridge. But the guy in the shop, I was looking at something else, and the guy in the shop was like, no, you probably need to look at this book. And that was exactly the same book. Wow. So there's I've had these little weird moments in my life, but in very auspicious places. So where there's really clear energy, or if I'm really clear on something, which has balanced me up from this other world of sex, drugs and rock and roll. That's as peaceful and as good as it gets.
Do you ever think about the old days, the good old days, if you like, and go, fuck, I wish they could still be there? Or are you glad you've had them and you're glad you're where you are?
Oh, I'm really, really glad I had them. Gosh, I wouldn't change, even though there's been, like I say, I'm a 1 in a million for good stuff and I'm a 1 in a million for crazy, bad stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it. It's been a real roller coaster. But I think if my life had been any different, I would have been bored, because being this Piscean that's mutable, I need to be able, and like even my day in the birthday book, I'm the day of the space voyager. So a lot of people go, does that mean you're a space cadet? And I go, no, that's about the space around you, your spatial voyager. I'm not voyaging off into outer space, but I probably have had some time in the Pleiades or something in another life. But it just says about I'm needing to keep this interesting thing happening, and I'm mutable and I've got to keep moving, and I've allowed myself not to get trapped or whatever. You know, like I was married for 8 months. That was the biggest trap of my life ever. And when that all finished up, even though there's times I think to myself, I'd really love to have a partner. I have so many really close friends that I have a really good soul connection with. I wouldn't have that if I had a partner. So, yeah, I don't know. I look back and I go, no, I wouldn't change a minute of any of my life. Even people go, would you change the abuse? Of course you would. But for some reason, if I'm believing in my universal beliefs that we make a choice of our soul coming in to go through something to get to to alchemise your soul, I guess is what I feel that you come to Earth for, that I've done a damn good job of that. And I've explored, and I've definitely been a space voyager, so I've gone along with who I'm supposed to be, I guess.
And now the space that you've entered in the last few years at least is sort of in the same vein of the sex, drugs and rock and roll. You've gone into owning your own brothel.
Yeah, which, it's so different to the worlds that I've been in. One thing I didn't mention either was when I first left school, I went my profession while I was doing all my centrefolds and everything else was psych nursing.
Yes.
So I actually became a registered psychiatric nurse.
I used to tell me some crazy stories about that.
I've seen it all. Bottom line is that's the other side of me. I'm really responsible for other people's lives. I'm like Thunderbirds, International Rescue. I always intervene if someone's hurting themselves or someone else. I can't not do that. And so, being a psych nurse, so the good thing about all of that was I did pharmacology. So you learn about every single drug, which then, you know, for this sex, drugs and rock and roll world, I'm not an addict and I haven't been really affected by anything. I've had a touch of, I've tried everything in my life except for injecting. I just don't, you know, I have a bit of needle phobia. I can give them, but I don't like getting them. Make me a psychopath? No, but yeah, just that whole thing, you know, not for me. I'm not into the rituals. I understand people need rituals in their life. I've got no judgment on it. I find it hideously self-injurious, but a lot of people need to have that deep calm because they're so tortured or their souls are so tortured. So I don't have a judgment on it. And I think that makes you a good psych nurse. If you absolutely have no judgment on anything and you just take everything for what it is and you do your best to get that person to improve on the situation they presented you with. And if you can get minuscule even improvement in that, you've done a job. And does that make you a good madam now? Yes, because not just because of pharmacology, but psych nursing does, because it helps. I don't even know if I want to say I'm a good madam. What's a good madam? Like, I've owned the brothel during what I call is the Ice Age. So unfortunately, I've seen a lot of very beautiful young women get caught up with that outside of my business, because I don't allow that in the business, which a lot of people go, she's crazy, that she can think she can run that place without allowing that. Because there's a lot of other brothels in the world that feed people drugs to keep them as an employee, you know, like keep them there. All of that stuff for me is really hideous, and the reason that I took this on in the first place is because I just want to have a clean, safe environment for women who are sexy, because there's just some women, there's 10% of women that are born to be what I call, it's like a Magdalene energy, you know, and that they've got something in their body, it's like this sacred sexual knowledge, and you just seem to know it. It just comes from within. And I've felt that I've known that, you know, or I don't know, maybe not sounding facetious, I'm no guru, and if some spiritual person's listening to me that's into sacred sex, they would be going, God, a brothel is so far removed from that. But the bottom line is that these guys are not having any connection even on a soul level, that they're very needy of it, even touch in this world where there's so much computer stuff and everything that goes on. No one's touching anyone anymore, you know? And it's almost like there's this really great service that the girls that do work for me are doing. And we have a lot of disabled guys, we have Down syndrome guys, we have people who are blind, wheelchair, cerebral palsy, you know, like there's a lot of people out there that find it really difficult to have any kind of connection, but they're male and their bodies are full of testosterone, and testosterone is something that builds up and builds up. You get rid of it and it comes back, it keeps flowing. It's something that's like eating and drinking in this world, I really believe. And like in this coronavirus times and the brothel's shut down, so I'm not an owner of a brothel at the moment, I'm the owner of nothing. So I wish that, you know, that, and I'm not opening the place because, I don't want everyone to be coming down on us like we're trying to do something to, you know, make COVID available or whatever. No, but all the phone calls on the answering machine there are from, you know, the parents of the Down syndrome guy. Or when are you opening up again? We're really getting to the point that he's getting aggressive at home now, you know. So it's actually my heart goes out to that, if you get what I'm saying. And and we are providing a service. And there's a disgruntled guy with his wife. He comes in and has a service. That marriage is saved. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, or you get, and we don't get a lot of husbands in there. That's not what I'm saying, you know. But then you get a lot of guys in Australia that are single workers, fly in, fly outers. And they don't have any time to meet women, and they really don't want to be in a relationship, but they need sex. Well, they don't want to sit at home or they're sick of sitting home and watching. Is only good for so long. For so long, you're not getting and it's not a intimacy. Connection. That's it. And yes, the internet, and yes, porno, and yes, everything has just crazily turned people's sex lives on their head. Like, I had a period there of six months or something where every single guy under 30 was coming in asking for anal at the front door. And I would just go, whoa, like, where's this mad obsession coming from? It's not something that people do all the time, but these guys are sitting at home, that's all they're seeing on porn for 24 hours. And these girls are acting on porn like that's all they want. And I mean, you know, like, again, I don't have a judgment on that, but it's not something everyone does every minute, and it's not a standard service of if the money you're paying is not going to cut it for an anal session and all of this. Like, there's specialty people that do that. Like, not all prostitutes would do anal service and things like that, you know. So trying to get that message to those guys, I felt like I was doing a bit of a healing service. I wasn't going cranky on them or anything. I was just sort of telling them to tone it down a bit and get a bit real. And, you know, I've got a lot of gay friends and everything, and gay men, it's not what they do all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's... And
what about the girls? Are you, like you said, you're in a lot of brothels around the world in Australia. There's a lot of girls that are on the ice, and you went through that ice.
They're fed it by people who own the brothels, I guess. You know, I don't know that for a fact. I've heard it from people who will come to my place and tell me about their past experiences. I'm good. I might be a big talker.
You are a big talker.
But I'm a good listener when it comes to people telling me soul stuff that they might need help with. Yeah. A lot of women have come through the brothel, like myself, that have had childhood sexual abuse. It does... As
in the girls, you mean?
Yeah. It does... Well, look, the clients wouldn't talk to me about that. They have a whole different... You know, we just do a bit of, you know, nice, friendly chit-chat. I don't get heavy conversation with them, but a few of the girls over time will, maybe hear me speak about Heartfelt House or something like that, and they'll have asked for pamphlets or whatever, just discreetly.
Do you think that's part of the healing process, or part, like, to actually go into sex working or stripping or something like that is part of the healing process, or is it part of what happens?
It's a part of it. It's actually, I think, a little bit of the self-injury that comes off it. But like I was saying before, I think my intelligence, there's a level with people with intelligence and self-injury. And I think the more you damage your brain, and you're becoming more, and I won't call it, you know, it's like a brain damage will happen. So your brain capacity's not as much, and that's drinking, drugging, all different things will happen. I try and not do that. You know, like, I'm not, I don't know, I think I'm at some level with my intelligence stops me from being that self-injurious, or, you know, instead of cutting myself, I'll go and get a beautiful tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that makes sense, because I did a podcast called Commando Style with a guy who's a former Special Forces commando, right? I did a podcast with him a few podcasts ago, and we spoke about emotional intelligence and PTSD.
Yes.
And he was telling me that the PTSD amongst returned soldiers and things like that isn't as high as what everyone makes out there to be. And he said, especially when you go to the more elite soldiers, like the commandos, the special forces guys.
They're very smart.
He said, exactly.
And they're not going to injure themselves to that level.
And because they're more emotionally intelligent, they know how to
manage themselves and manage the PTSD.
And don't let it get to them.
This is where I've come to in my life. I have very rare occasions where I let my PTSD get to me. But I'd still dissociate. I still... You know, I know I've got not multiple personalities that all come to the forefront, but there'd be 2 or 3.
Well, I was the same when I mentioned earlier that I went through the abuse as well, and I went through a lot of therapy with that right up through my 40s. Right, I'm going through therapy. It's one of those things that sticks with you for a very long time, and I was having bad dreams, nightmares, all sorts of thoughts, and you still have those thoughts. You don't escape them. You learn how to manage them.
That's it.
And I remember going to my psychologist for an extended period of time, and he actually looked at me and he goes, I am blown away that you are as stable and well-adjusted as you are. He goes, someone that's gone through the abuse that you've gone through for such an extended period of time, I'm amazed you haven't tried to kill yourself, that you're not an alcoholic.
Or a heroin addict. Or you're lying in a gutter somewhere.
He goes, most people I know that I deal with that have gone through what you've gone through.
Or be homeless at the moment,
He goes, so rest in the knowledge that you are doing amazing.
Exactly. Give yourself a pat on the back, basically.
And then to have that backed up from this guy who's the commando to understand, wow, that really makes sense.
It's true.
You need to get a handle on it. You need to understand it, not go into that poor me victim side of stuff.
You've got to get rid of the victim. Yeah. You've got to, because that'll cripple you for the rest of your life, emotionally and physically. You will become a physical cripple from that, because emotional stuff affects your body so much.
Absolutely.
and there'll be spots in your body that just won't be able to move on. There won't be any chi happening there, because that's just shut down. And these are the things that have kept me sane, healthy, and I've got probably different times in my life I've had people go, God, she's crazy as a loon. And then other times, wow, you're the best chick I've ever met. But that's because I manage myself in situations. If someone's acting really scary to me, then I'm going to go crazy as a loon, because that's my protection. Because they're going to think, fuck, she's crazier than I am. I'm not going there. That's my protection. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt.
So I guess I've got a voice as well that since my brother, it sounds weird, but before the end of my abuse, when I was small, the abuse was all still happening, but my mum was big on paying me 20 cents to sing Edelweiss to visitors and stuff. Shocking, those horrible mothers that try and be like a stage mother or whatever it was.
Wasn't that from The Sound of Music, Edelweiss?
Yeah. So anyway, apparently I had this amazing voice. And then my brother actually choked me to death when I was 7. And I remember, the one thing that I remember is from that day forth, my voice sounded a bit like Daffy Duck. And then years later, when I was, actually it was when I was I had I had my implants done and everything, and then I had one of them burst inside me, and then I was getting them replaced. And I remember when I came out of that operation, the anaesthetist was there, and he was just angry at me, and he said, I could hardly get you back. Where did you wander to? Like I was trying to get you back in your body. You shouldn't do that to people. Apparently it took them a really long time for me to get me back into some sort of recovery or something. And I don't have a memory of where I went to, but I know that when you've got a really afflicted soul, you can be lost trying to find answers. Maybe I was just off in some wandering thing. Like I'm really into Carlos Castaneda and dream, walking and all this. And I really feel if you're even induced into an unconscious state, you can kind of access these other vortexes or other planes.
Isn't that what all the medicinal plant healing is all about? All the ayahuasca and
exactly.
even the medicinal cannabis.
And like at one point I did a mescal 5-day thing and did a mescal thing for my totem animal, and I had this Black Panther full on coming at me and stuff. I do know there's energetically that's all real. I'm really into my body chi and everything, but I don't run around acting like I'm a guru and putting that on anyone else. That's all real, just deep personal stuff of mine, but I'm happy to share the information if someone asks me about that particular subject, but I'm sure not any expert on it.
How have you been sharing all this stuff today? Like we've gone into some pretty full-on stuff.
Yeah.
How's that been for you?
I find it really easy now. Like I've gotten over myself. Does that make...
Absolutely.
I hope it makes... I keep saying, does that make sense? But often... Nowadays, I'm on my own a lot, even though I have my business, I have whatever. I'm alone in my energy because other people haven't explored what I have. And this is where I find it's also hard for me to find a partner that will, and I won't put the words put up with me because I don't deserve that, but who will...
Understand
me, but also kind of put the wind under my wings rather than cutting them, because there's a lot of people that get jealous that I've had a big life. If I start telling my stories, they don't believe it at first, and then they just get insanely jealous.
Yeah.
And I got to be careful, because I don't tell any of these stories or say any of this stuff to skite. It's just been my life.
Yeah.
And I guess it'd be really good to find a man that may be equally well-travelled or equally whatever. I just haven't come across it. I haven't put a lot of time into it.
I don't know if you're going to find someone as equally well explored as what you've been.
I don't know, yeah. See, this is the crazy thing for me. And so that's what makes me shut up a lot. See, this being very open with all this. And then also owning a brothel. A lot of guys, they're very uncool with that. They're very uncool with prostitution. And a couple of dates I've been on since I've owned the brothel, within an hour they starting their sentences with "you should." And I feel like saying you should have a little bit more life experience before you start your sentences with "you should."
It's been so good having a chat to you. It's been so good just talking about all this stuff, looking at all these old photos, and just bringing back some memories. And, you know, like as I said, I've known you for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've heard all these stories before, you know, and it's amazing. And a lot of them I've forgotten.
That's exactly right. Well, I mean, the other side to the coin is I was in a Greek prison, 2 different Greek prisons because some guy embezzled money out of an Austrian guy, didn't pay the Greek lawyer who was supposed to. The Austrian guy couldn't speak Greek. I could speak it but not read it. And we all get flown over to Greece for this big dancing troupe thing. They tell us, your visas, they even manipulate us more. The visas aren't ready till Thursday. So you're really in this thing going, this is all legitimate, this is great. We went and sightseed. I was with Terry Bowie at the time. Went sightseeing all around Athens thinking, great, we've got 4 days of holiday before I actually have to start work. And I'm in the table dancing club, had this massive Diana Dawes wig on and in this beautiful evening dress, and this Irish seaman had just come in with a massive roll of American, $100 bills or whatever, and I'm thinking, beautiful, I might take that all off you by the end of the night, but I'm going to make you feel real good while we're doing it. And we were just having this really great chatty moment, and I was all smiles, and I was just about to start my table dance. I get a gun to my head, my whole wig ripped off. This poor guy must have thought I was a drag queen or something, like looking at me having my wig ripped off and a gun in my head, and I got dragged out. I actually thought I was getting taken away to the white slave trade. So they've thrown me in an unmarked car with no door handles in the back. And this is, at 10 at night, so it's pitch dark. And they're not speaking any English, and I'm not speaking any Greek. And every time I open my mouth and go, what's happening like that, they just turn around and slap me. Like I've been in such scary situations in my life. I end up, they're taking us to immigration prison, and we don't have visas for working in Greece. So we didn't know any of this. We just got totally set up. And then I ended up in that prison for a week, in court, everything else. And then they said, you can leave prison and go back to the club. But apparently they said, you can leave prison, but you have to go home. But the guy that owned the club said, no, you leave prison, you can come back to work. So we went, he said, we'll just go to another club up in Thessaloniki, not in Athens. So we're like lambs to the slaughter. We have no clue, because I'm not having a proper interpreter tell me anything, because they're just putting anyone in who will say anything. They take us up to Thessaloniki, where the second night of dancing there, and the same thing happens. All the cops come in and raid us, and young Liza was with me as well as Terry on that trip, and she was just lost it. Her and I jumped out of the dressing room window, and we saw this car sitting there in the dark, and we thought we'll hide in the car. So we got in the back seat, and it was the police car. Could you even believe it?
I can believe it.
And then they took us to jail again, and then we had to go through all this court again. getting slapped, we actually went to this massive jail. There was 40 women in an 8-person cell. So there were 5 benches in there, and we all had to just crowd in on them. There was a hole in the ground as the toilet in the corner, and there was just this tap with water dripping out of it, and the food was just like, oh my God, just like moussaka mush, just that you couldn't even recognise. And Terry didn't get arrested, so she was on the outside of the jail, and Liza and I were in, and they let her in to visit us, I think, like twice a week. I started smoking cigarettes in prison. I was like B. Smith in there trying to organise all the dancing.
How long were you in there
girls.
for?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then this guy walks past the jail. Every single person that walked past, didn't matter if they'd hit me or spit on me or whatever, I always had to ask them, did they speak English? I never gave up. And then this really handsome guy, looked a little bit like Jamie Drury. This guy comes walking past, and I went, do you speak English? And he goes, fuck yeah, what are you doing? Where are you from? And I went, Australia. And he goes, what are you doing here? And I went, if you tell me that, we'll both know. I went, where are you from? And he goes, I'm from here, but I've been living in New York for like 10 years as a New York cop, and I thought I'd just get a job in the jail when I came home. And he goes, why are you even here? And I went, I don't know. Of course, we were dancing and someone embezzled money off someone and we didn't have visas, and so they've thrown us in here. And he's gone, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And I'm hanging onto his arm going, this is the first person in 2 weeks that's human, I don't want to let him go. He was like an angel. And he goes, no, I promise you faithfully I'll be back in 5 minutes. And he left, and he came back with the 8 passports in his hand of the 8 girls that I was, were in our travelling dance group thing that were part of this club. And he got us all out, and we were like not even believing that this was happening. And he hands us our passports and he said, just go home, get out. It's Friday afternoon here in Greece. Nothing happens. No one will know. Just get on a plane and get out of this country and you'll be free. And I could, it was like another scene from a movie. I'm walking out of this prison free, and I can't even believe it. And I got my bags. I had Terry organised to pick up the bags or something. I remember nearly getting killed one more time when I was going to the airport because I needed a bottle of water, and I stopped at a little Greek. They have these little stalls with all sorts of things. You can buy everything from a blow-up beach toy to a box of matches or whatever. They've got everything in these little stalls. And I stopped to get a bottle of water, and a gypsy tried to grab my handbag, so I elbowed her in the head. And then 40 gypsies came out and tried to stab me while I'm at this stall. And I just remember running to the taxi and getting in the taxi and getting away. I don't know, it was just incredible. And I remember getting to the airport and sitting on the seat as close as I could to the door to get on the plane, and even the wait for the plane. And Terry and I were just, and Liza were just all I don't know, we weren't even breathing, I don't think. We were so terrified, and we just needed to get out of this country. And then we got on the plane, and the plane took off, and I actually had to be pinching myself going, we actually got away. We really aren't in prison anymore. I got back to Sydney. I actually kissed the ground at Sydney Airport. I just couldn't believe it. And then I think I had jet lag for about 5 days after that. I just was an absolute, I think all the stress and all the everything, I just couldn't get out of bed for about 5 days when we got home.
Someone's got to make a movie of this one day,
well,
surely.
Look, anyone out there that wants to do the book, I've kind of got 5 books in the computer a bit, but not, and it's all in my head, and I have got great memory on it all. But I'd really love if they did a movie. There's some other scene. What about even the scene of Hayden hanging off the back of the bloody cattle truck? Yeah,
that was crazy.
That's an Australian movie scene that they should have in Red Dog or something.
Well, that was the other story. If we go back to the very start of our conversation when I first met you, and we were on tour in North Queensland. So this is a great way to wrap it up, because we started here, we're coming back again. And there was, as I said, there was 3 things that I remember. One was the original started that with the show in Bowen.
Yes.
The other one was us driving along in the truck one time, and you girls were way ahead of us.
And we threw all the bulrushes
and you jumped
at the
out,
car.
You jumped out naked and had all these things and threw them at the
Bulrush
car.
spears.
Which scared the shit out of us.
And that was so funny because the truck did a little death wobble.
Oh,
like
man,
it went, and everyone went off.
We were like jumping out of our pants. So that was the second one.
One of the funniest things I think
all
back
these
on
naked girls just jumping out on the road.
We looked like the mad naked Amazon race coming out. That was why we'd done it.
Yeah, so that was number 2. And the third thing that I remember vividly was me, Evan and Hayden in the truck behind you guys, because our truck could only go 100 k's an hour. We were one of those rented trucks.
The little Hertz one that looks like a turtle with the black thing with that little turtle face
and we
on
had all the lighting equipment, the sound equipment, the costumes. We
Very
carried all that sort of
little
stuff.
truck.
And we were driving, I can't remember, somewhere in North Queensland.
It would have been, I think we were like between Blackwater and Mount Isa or something.
Something crazy like that. And we were going, and we got stuck behind this cattle truck. And I think we were going...
It was a road train.
We're going up a sort of a hill.
There's not really... It's
not a hill, but it was like an incline.
It's an incline, but out there, because everything's flat, it all looks like it's all flat, but there's actual inclines that make the trucks slow down to like 5 miles an hour,
it was
10
going
miles
so
an
slow,
hour.
and we were sitting but the problem was, because I think the road was narrow, we couldn't overtake.
You can't overtake, you got to just stay. And red dust, you can't see.
So we're sitting in our truck just looking at this thing, bored out of our head, because it felt like forever. And Hayden, your husband at the time, goes, "Hey, can you go? I'm going to jump on the back of it," because there was a cow hanging out over the top, chewing hay. Hay was spilling out over to the front of our windscreen. And he goes, "I'm going to jump on the back, get next to the cow. Can you take a photo of it?" And I went, "Oh yeah, cool." So he jumps on the back. He's hanging on the back of this road train. I'm snapping off photos, and then suddenly
it hits the top of the incline
and it just takes off.
And then to 200 miles an hour.
And we were like, holy shit. Evan and I looked at each other going, what the? And so suddenly we just hit the accelerator trying to catch up to this truck. We're behind the truck, flashing the lights, pulling out onto the other side of the road.
He's not going to even know.
He wouldn't even know. And we couldn't overtake him because we didn't have the speed.
Exactly.
We could only get to the 100 Ks. And we knew that coming up in about a few kilometres time, we actually had to take a turn off to go to wherever we were.
And he's stuck on the back of the bloody truck.
And we thought, there's a good chance this truck's just going to keep going straight. What are we going to do? So one of us, I don't know who it was, came up with the idea, hey, let's just drive up as close as we can to the truck, and I'm going to stick my arm out and try and pull him into the truck. Luckily, it had a bonnet on the front of the truck. It wasn't like a flat one. So there was a bit of a bonnet. So we pulled up right up as close as we could to this, this road train going 100 Ks an hour. I'm leaning out of the passenger side of the truck. Evan's hanging onto my jeans and my belt so I wouldn't fall out. And I'm hanging out going, okay, just grab my arm.
And he was covered in cow shit, wasn't he? And everything that had been flying out of the truck when it got... That's the funniest thing that you told me, was seeing Hayden hanging off the back of the truck with just cow pats smashing into him. I love, because, Yeri was my husband, but we did break up after 8 months. So you got to know, I got a bit of passive aggression towards him in there. And when you told me that, I was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
So I ended up having the arm out the window. We sort of monkey gripped. He monkey gripped onto my arm, and I pulled him onto the bonnet, and then we pulled over the side and we got him in the truck. That was just...
And the adrenaline would have just been so out there after something like that. But they're the road stories that I just love telling people.
And that was the start of my adventure with you and the Penthouse Pet.
There you go. So...
Thank you for having a chat with me.
Hey, look,
I love you so much.
You're my bro. You know that. I know that. Soul brother.
I love you.
And I think we have had a lot of the same experiences in our life. Our lives are very similar in that way. So it's really great because I know I can always count on you. And you have really helped me a couple of times in my life. One in particular, getting out of that relationship in Lennox, and you came down and you stood there just... being there, and you were just like this martial arts energy that was there that I just really needed, and I'll never forget it. I just feel like just like you wouldn't know how important it is to have that soul connection, and you've showed up in my son's life like this great male that I will always present you to him as a great mentor, and thank you for that.
This has been another episode of the Bold and the Beautiful podcast.